Hey, and we are back with another episode of Gentleman's History Hour. We got the regulars and then we got the special guests. So I'm Rob J. 10X.
I'm Equality.
And hey, right in the middle here, we got a special guest, Brother Edward Pollard, the youngest elected councilman in Houston, right?
I am, yes.
Hey, man, cool guy, and also share a lot of childhood friends,
Yeah. A lot of mutual connections, so it's cool to see.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, this is actually the first time that we've had a lot of different guests. We had a guest who knew about ancestry, law, guns. Never had a politician before. So
you're our first, man. So welcome to the Gentleman's History Hour, man.
I appreciate you all inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time, man. We deal with history in the context of now and people that's making history in the present. So we look at this as like a time capsule, man. So 50, 60 years down the line, somebody will look at this and say, okay, they'll have some history.
All right, cool.
So we making history in real time, man.
Right. And I'm gonna have my signed core magazine too. So yeah, that's cool, man. So what made you get into politics? Like what was your inspiration for that?
So I come from a family of people who were not politicians, but was always around politics and service. My grandfather actually was Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor. A lot of people don't know that, but my grandfather organized the first bus boycott in the country. He did that in 1953 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It was 2 years before the Alabama bus boycott that Martin Luther King Jr. Got a lot of global recognition from.
What's your grandfather's name?
His name is T.J. Jemison. He was also the pastor and president of the National Baptist Convention. So he was big in the civil rights movement back in the day. And cool story is after my grandfather had a successful bid on overcoming the challenges of the bus boycott, Martin Luther King came down to Baton Rouge and stayed with my grandfather, and my grandfather taught him the blueprint on how to do a successful bus boycott. The reason my grandfather's bus boycott did not get as much notoriety is it only lasted 8 days. They were able to get things settled in Baton Rouge a little over a week, but in Alabama it took over a year. And we kind of know that story and, Selma and walking across the Edmonds Pettus Bridge and all of that. But it took over a year, and that's how it got so known. And that was the change in the civil rights movement. And so, that's my history, that's my lineage. And my mother is an educator. My father is a Marine veteran. And so I've always kind of been around service, political science major at Morehouse College. But really didn't know much about, running for office or what my plan would be until I got to law school. And when I got to law school at Thurgood Marshall School of Law here in Houston, I did an internship at the state capitol in Austin, and I was a staffer for a state representative for an entire legislative session. And it was the first time I got to be involved in politics on a day-to-day basis and see what happens from the inside. And one night I was up in the House gallery and I was looking over at all of the legislators, and they were discussing bills that affected our community. And I noticed that there were not a lot of young people and there definitely wasn't a lot of black people. So I said, you know what, I don't want to just be around the discussion, I want to be a part of this discussion. And I made my mind that day that I was going to run for office. So I called home, I told my parents after I graduated from law school, I'm going to run for office, and that was back in 2011.
So you knew while you were in college?
Well, in law school.
In law school.
Yeah, so that was back in 2011. I didn't get elected to my first position until 2020. So that's almost a decade of a lot of struggle, overcoming a lot of obstacles, because I actually ran for office 5 years ago. I ran for state representative. And came up a bit short in the Democratic primary against an incumbent, and just stayed out there, stayed persistent, developed relationships, kept going to community meetings, and when the city council seat opened up for District J, which is Southwest Houston, I ran for that and was able to win.
That's awesome. Man, salute to that, man.
Appreciate it.
So what's the terms on that?
So it's 2 4-year terms. I'm going into my second year right now of my first term, and came into office not knowing anything about a pandemic or a coronavirus or COVID-19.
During your time.
And now, our daily routine, our daily lives is dictated by that virus. And so just trying to maneuver around the challenges that presents and how to help families maintain and sustain during these challenging times as it pertains to, rent and employment, health. It's been a lot. And so just taking it step by step. Love what I do, enjoy being around people, have a passion for service, but this is definitely, this past 12 months has been a challenge for sure. Yeah, man. But that's what I signed up for, and I'm glad I'm in a position to lead.
Man, that's awesome, man. And that's, God's time is perfect time. And, this is a heck of a first, second year.
Yeah, it's a lot going on for
sure.
The
learning curve.
Yeah, it's just trial by fire, really. You got to get out there, and I tell people, I'm one of the youngest electeds in the county, really the state, and I'm young enough and naive enough to think that anything can still happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so I came into office not knowing much about what to do on the day-to-day, so I told my office we're just going to try to do everything,
Yeah.
And so we get out there, have a really good staff. I have 5 people who work for me at City Hall, and they do a lot of the day-to-day operations, but we come together as a team. We think of initiatives and ideas and visions that we have for the city of Houston, and we just try,
Man,
we figure it out as we go along.
Man, that's powerful right there. I always think about, people who get a chance to have someone speak life into them, like the first time Mike Tyson meets Customato, he tells him you're going to be a champ, and for whatever reason, his connection, he believes it. With you, was it the fact that you saw your grandfather have impact, politically? Did that give you that boldness to be like, I could actually be a part of it?
Yeah, I think that did have something to do with it. Nothing that I realized at the time growing up, but looking back and being around service, I think was just something that was a part of me. My mother always gave me confidence throughout my childhood, always told me that, there was nothing I couldn't do. And that night that I was up there at the House Gallery looking over at the legislators, I could see myself down there. I said, why not me? And I believe with anything, not just politics, but any industry space that you're in, it's just persistence. It's a longevity game. Nothing's going to happen quickly. Nothing's going to happen easily. That's going to be long-term sustainable. So you just have to really get out there and try. And if you get out there and try and give it your best, eventually your time will come.
So you went to Morehouse, and there's a lot of history out there. That ACU area with Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, and the whole center that's out there. Was it any? Did you have any historical influences outside of your direct family as far as law or even local politics?
Yeah.
'Cause, Houston has a rich history in I know the north side, like Fifth Ward, Barbara Jordan, and people like Mickey Leland and Craig Washington, and people that come from that ilk, even El Franco Lee.
Yeah, so my mother's been a professor at Texas Southern University for 40 years, so wow. I grew up on campus there. And, TSU has a rich alumni, especially politically, with Barbara Jordan and Mickey Leland, Congressman Al Green, many others. And so I kind of was around it, all the time, not really realizing their impact. But as you grow older and kind of look back at your life and say, I think I was influenced.
The energy was there.
Yeah, you see those pictures, you read those scripts, you have people around that tell you stories, and that's kind of just a part of who you are. And the reason I wanted to go to Thurgood Marshall School of Law, a lot of people in the city, we don't value our HBCUs, especially Texas Southern and Prairie View. And we try to go off to these other schools, but we have a rich history right here, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so that was the only law school that I even applied to, because I wanted to be a part of that TSU history.
Yeah, you make a great point. Now that you say that, because we talk about sports, they say, well, if we can get the athletes to stay and go to
the HBCU.
But what about the brilliant minds of the kids? Recruit them too. Not just say that the athletes, and I know that generates a lot of money for the schools, but sometimes a lot of the kids, they have this assumption that, I need to go off to a predominantly
and a lot of times it starts with the parent, because we have a lot of our parents and grandparents, they went to those HBCUs because that was their only choice, right? And they became successful through hard work and getting out there in corporate America or getting out there in the world. They say, okay, I've gotten to a certain stature, so I can afford, or I can send my child to a PWI, so I can send them to UT or I can send them to Baylor. But it's like the reason you can do that is based off your foundation from that HBCU. And so I try to instill in my friends and peers that, you know, when you have children that gets to an age where they can choose which college or university to go to, strongly consider a HBCU, because you'll never get that type of experience anywhere else.
Definitely.
Most definitely.
And we are products of HBCUs.
Yeah, you know, FAMU, PV, TSU. We got, you know, another TSU behind the camera. Yeah. But, you know, I think one of the things that people say, the misconception I hate about HBCUs is when people, you know, went to PWIs and things like that, say stuff like, well, it's not the real world. Well, it's preparing you. Like, edification is preparing you. Like, putting your arms around somebody is preparing. Like, one thing I really admire about Morehouse, I came really close to going to Morehouse. Had I not probably did that bus trip and went over there, I probably was at Morehouse. But FAMU just got me. But I always admire, like, the way they just put their arms around, you know, the young brothers come there. Like, I think, you know, I'm sure it's gonna be someone who slips through the cracks in anything, but I feel like it takes a lot to go wrong to slip through some cracks there. Cause I seen them brothers just go like, nah, you know, and just have pride, like walk to class with pride, like, hey.
And that's what HBCUs do. You know, it's the greatest thing about an HBCU is I think teaches you self-worth. It teaches you purpose. It gives you confidence in your own culture, your own identity, and you're around people who come from similar circumstances, similar backgrounds, and HBCUs are extremely diverse because black people are not all the same.
Man, I say that all the time. We're not monolithic.
Yeah, so when I got to Morehouse, I was a freshman, went to my first class, and when I sat down in the room, it was probably 30 black 18-year-olds, and everyone was different, you know. I'm coming from Houston, Texas, where we have our own style. You know, we used to have starched jeans, and you have starched jeans, you have some Jordans. Yeah. So, but then you get there and you see a guy from Cali. He has on his Chucks and he dresses a certain way. You're gonna have the preppy Carlton guy. You're gonna have the Malcolm X guy. You're gonna have the guys from up north with the Timbs and the hoodie. Everyone was different, and that really made me appreciate blackness even more, and black men and what we bring to the table. And so we're extremely diverse, and it does prepare you for the real world because it gives you that extra armor of confidence that if I could come through here, I could do anything.
Let's veer off into something, man, because one thing about you, you're an academic, but you were also an athlete. Yeah. So you went to Morehouse, you were academic in high school, and you also played basketball. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So how was that experience?
It was great. You know, I played basketball at Lamar High School and was all district, all city. Went off to Morehouse College and played there. I was the only freshman on the basketball team when I got there. And the experience of playing basketball at HBCU is great because the atmosphere is like no other. It's like your own fraternity of brothers that's on the team. You get to travel to a lot of other HBCUs for road trips, and so you get to have that whole experience. And honestly, you know, we would go to Georgia Tech, and we would look at their atmosphere, and we'd be like, wow, I wish I could play in something like this. But the players from Georgia Tech would then come to our games and say the same thing, right? And so I think sometimes we devalue what we may have because we're in it and look at what's happening on TV or, you know, March Madness at times. But to play with, you know, the bands that HBCUs have, the sororities that the HBCUs have,
it's a culture, man.
It's a whole different experience, man. The music that blasts, the type of cheers and dances that the cheerleaders do, it's a fun experience. And for
one of the reasons I brought it up is to just to kind of show, because a lot of times coming out of our neighborhoods, what did Biggie say? You either slanging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. Yeah. So to make it and say, okay, for a young kid or someone that's watching this, they'll know you can be academically inclined, you can be athletically inclined, and you can still mesh both of those worlds together without the pressure of, I only have athletics.
Yeah, and you should use, I tell kids all the time, especially young boys, you should use sports. Don't let sports use you. And you want to make sure that you use your athletic talent to get you a strong education. And education is really the thing that opens doors the most for anybody. And eventually, Father Time will win, and you're not going to be able to play forever. I don't care how good you are, but most of us, even the best of us, aren't going to make it to the NBA or to the NFL, and you're going to have some foundation of a skill or some type of education that you will be able to provide for yourself and your family long term. And so use sports, but don't let sports use you. And you can go to school, get you a great education, have a great experience, but make sure it's working for you. Don't be one of those kids that get the scholarship and doesn't graduate.
I always say this, look, man, you play sports and got a debt-free degree, you made it to the
That's
league.
a win.
You played in the league.
That is a win.
That's the league.
That's a win.
That's
a win. I talked to a lot of my friends who did not have a full scholarship or come out of school debt free, and that stays with you for years and years and years. So it kind of boxes you in, and you're not as flexible to be able to do some of the things you want to do because you always have to worry about that debt. So if you're fortunate enough to get a scholarship in sports or anything else, man, that's a blessing.
And take advantage of it, man.
And speaking with sports, what's your opinion on this line of athletes and their political views?
I love it.
Because with everything that's been going on in the world, these past 4 years of politics on a national level that we had to deal with, and a lot of the political unrest. You had the comments of people saying the athletes should just shut up and dribble. They shouldn't have an opinion, and different guys are coming out. So as a former athlete that is into politics, what's your views on that?
I think it's great. I mean, the professional athletes have a lot of leverage. They have a huge platform. They have a lot of money, a big reach. And in the age of social media, I mean, they can really get out their message to the masses. And what it does is show that, they aren't so far removed that they don't understand the struggles of everyday people, especially from the Black community. And so it gives you that empowerment and that hope to say, okay, they're with us. And when it comes to the NFL and the NBA, they've been able to leverage that into raising awareness, having more programs, and different initiatives that either work with social justice or criminal justice reform, police reform, things that we're really trying to tackle. They're able to provide a lot of the resources and the funding for that and use their voice to support. And like when you see what Colin Kaepernick is doing with the NFL, he took a huge stance that cost him his career that I think, generations from now, people are going to look back at him as a true civil rights icon and a true pioneer. Because the money that he's generating and the awareness that he's generating is going all across the country to all these programs and all these cities to try to make a change.
I got a question for both of y'all, since you brought that up. Now, people in Hollywood started getting into politics all the way back to Ronald Reagan and then Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do y'all think that we'll see a resurgence of athletes transitioning into politics? And if so, who do y'all think would be
like a
some
Bill
of those people
or something like that?
I do think you will. I think you could see a person like a Chris Paul one day run for office. Harrison Barnes for the Sacramento Kings has expressed interest in one day running for office. I would not be shocked one day if you saw LeBron James get out there and do something politically. But yes, this is a time in which they understand their platform. They're more socially engaged, and they understand that they can do much more than dribble. And I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen a few of them get out there and test the water.
I can see Dame Lillard, mayor of Oakland. I can see that.
And so, the mayor of Sacramento is Kevin Johnson.
Yeah, that's right, Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, from the Phoenix Suns.
Is that where he's from?
I think he's from there.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so, yes, to answer your question, I do think you can see that resurgence one day because we have some really bright and talented athletes that can do much more than just dribble a ball or catch a football.
Now, this was the wrong election to presidential-wise to be super objective, but I'm just, at my core, that's who I am. But I realize that even trying to listen to both, it was a contentious subject, so I just let it go, went ahead and went blue and everything. But I was wondering, one of the positions I was trying to raise was, what's more important on a political level, voting or like financial backing? Like, what do you think we should be doing as a black community to have more political influence?
You need both. I mean, political power comes in two ways. You need either a lot of money or you need a lot of people. If you have a lot of money and a lot of people, then you really can do a lot. And so we have to understand that voting is the one way in which any person who's a citizen can go to a ballot box and give their own opinion on what they want to see, right? The money comes into play to give access and resources to those that you support or have similar interests. That's where the money comes in. You can be the most brilliant person and have all these ideas and these visions for making your community better, but if no one knows it, because you can't get on TV, you can't put out any mail, you can't hire a staff, you can't do proper get out the vote efforts, then no one's ever gonna know. And that's where the money comes from. But it's extremely important to vote. For people who say, it's a waste of time, if it was a waste of time, they wouldn't be doing so much to prevent you from trying to vote, right? And so we have to really push our community and use our leverage as black people, not just to be so predictable. I'm very centrist in my political views. I'm very middle, very independent. And I think for too long, blacks, when we show up to the polls, we're 90% Democrat. And so
we get taken for granted.
Yeah, and I'm not saying jump ship to the other side at all, but I am saying let's use our numbers as leverage like every other race. Whites, Hispanics, Asians, they're all split. And we need to be more like that too. So both parties can come and recruit us like athletes, right? If you know that you're a free agent, I'm a free agent.
Yeah.
What you got for me? Put it up on the board. Let me know what these are our priorities. Which one of y'all can meet these?
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier with sports. Don't take me for granted.
That's what made Kaepernick's initial protest so, basically just in riveting this fact, you didn't know who was going to do what. The whole team may take a knee. Yeah. Nobody might take a knee. Yeah. He might throw a fist. So it was unpredictable. Yeah. The only reason I say I just went straight ticket blue is because at this point in life, I really vote out of really honoring what the ancestors did. And, and I just feel like for me, it's like, what do my people want? And I just vote in alignment with that, because when I've tried to, present centrist, dialogue, then, pretty much.
But keep doing it, because at the end of the day, I think behind closed doors, especially black people, the conversations are starting to come up to be like, what are we getting from our votes? What are we getting from always voting the same way? When you look at healthcare, when you look at education, when you look at the economy, when you look at home ownership, blacks have not progressed the way you think we should have over decades, right? But we continue to vote the same way. Yeah. You have to ask yourself, why? Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And so I think we have to, like I said, use our numbers as leverage, be more free agent, and say, okay, we're up for grabs, and we want to know not maybe which party, but which candidate is going to support our interests. And you'll be able to pick based on a person's character, their track record, what they have been able to show you, and try to explain what will be in your best interest going forward. But if we continue just to vote the same way, then I think we'll be taken for granted.
I think it's changing, man. I think the other side are doing that. They are recruiting. Mm-hmm. They aren't just assuming that because you're this comparing to athletes. I'm just assuming you're gonna go to this school because you're a 5-star athlete. They're like, no, you may be able to come over to our side. They're doing it, and we're starting to see that, especially with the past election that we had for the president. You started to see more and more people say, okay, on a conservative end, let's just call it liberal conservative, and it's a resurgence of young black people that are moving more and more toward the conservative side, because they're saying that they're.
I think there's a lot of people that are conservative, but they don't necessarily want to be Republican or really want to vote for Donald Trump. Didn't want to vote for Trump, but at our core, a lot of
people have conservative.
We really
Black
have
people-
conservative values.
Yeah, we
you know?
do. Yeah.
Black people are very conservative as a foundation. If you look at most black people who vote also go to church. You know, you believe in strong family values. You believe in fiscal responsibility.
Views.
You know, and some of those things can be attributed to the right. But at the same time, when it comes to a lot of social justice programs, when it comes to a lot of criminal justice initiatives, some of those can be contributed to the left. And so we can't just sit there and be so predictable. We have to be diverse because that's who we are. We're not one and the same. When you see some black men starting to vote more, let's say conservative, it's because some black men are getting to a point in their professions or their careers where they're thinking more with their pocketbooks, and they are thinking about taxes, and they're thinking about, you know, fiscal responsibility, and they want to keep more money in their pocket. When they hear the left say, you know, we want to have, we don't want tax breaks for the rich, and they consider themselves rich, they say, well, you coming after me. So that's why I think as a black community, you can't just automatically assume we're going to be one way or the other. And we as black men have to have real conversations about what we want to see. Yeah. What type of communities do we want to raise our families in, and then decide on which candidates fit that mold.
Yeah,
you know,
most definitely.
and go from there.
Councilman, this is something I want you to speak on. Since we're in the political realm, the importance of local politics, because a lot of times we see national, we always jump to national politics, and people don't really pay attention to what's going on in the backyard, which is home. So I think the importance of local politics is one thing. If people say, well, you know, I don't want to vote or whatever, it's still, you may not care about who's running for president, you may not like this guy or that guy, but your local politics to me matters even more so than the national sometimes.
Because local politics hits you directly at home on a daily basis. So when you think of local politics, you think of, you know, your school board trustees. They're the ones that are elected to oversee your child's school district and the way in which they learn, the textbooks they read, you know, the curriculum and the programs that are at the schools. When you think about your city council members, you're thinking about your parks, your libraries, your police, your fire, your trash. You know, those are things that hit you on a day-to-day. And you're paying your tax dollars every single day to go into that system to give you those services. So you should be engaged in what's going on. You know, the city of Houston, we're the 4th largest city in the country. We have a $5 billion annual budget, and primarily that budget is paid for by property taxes and sales taxes. And so black people, we are the #1 consumer in the country. And if we're out there, we're buying all this merchandise. You know, we're out there at Steak 48 and Mastro's. We're paying all these other people all this money. Yeah. That sales tax comes right back into our communities, and we want to make sure that we're getting bang for our buck, and we want to make sure that the tax dollars that we pay is able for our streets to look a certain way, our parks to look a certain way. We shouldn't have to go to River Oaks for a nice park. We should want a nice park where we live, maybe in 3rd Ward or in Acres Homes or in Hiram Clark. So, but the only way that you're going to stay up on that and hold people accountable is by being engaged and voting for people who have like-minded interests.
How do you, on the engagement part, my family's from Detroit. One thing that's unique about that city, like, I've never been somewhere where you could stop someone, a stranger on the street, and they could tell you who their commissioner is, who this, what. How do you get, if I live in District J and I want to keep up with what's going on, is there a monthly meeting or something? Or
so no, I mean, you want to use technology, right? This is the information age. You go on your phone right now and you say, who represents, you go to Google, type in who represents me. You're going to have websites that come up and they're going to say, type in your address. You type in your address, it's going to tell you all the people who represent you. And they'll have all their contact information, and you can just reach out. The fact that on a local level, I'm sitting right here in the living room with you all. You know, you can't just go and say, I want to get Barack Obama to come over. But your local electeds, you have access to. You can touch them. They live in your community.
Amongst the people.
You can go and set a meeting with them based on an email, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to take advantage of that because they're the ones that dictate your day-to-day actions as it pertains to policy and procedure.
Wow, man, that's some good stuff. Man.
One thing just from talking to people from certain times when we were talking about like the people like the Mickey Lelands or the El Franco Lees and the people that came from a particular lineage of politics, it seemed as if, and maybe because of what was going on during that time period, people were kind of backing and already selecting, like saying, okay, we're in a backroom meeting and we're saying, okay, Mr. Pollard, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be the guy that we're going to back. And we're going to make sure that you're going to be out in the forefront. You're going to run for District J. We're going to back you. We're going to make sure that it's already kind of been set that he's the guy that's going to run, and everyone else kind of knows their place. So I don't know if it still exists like that.
That happens still to a degree. You know, there have people in what you say the establishment that do try to identify talent and do try to identify people that they think can run. But I think what's different now is there's much more money out there. At that point in time, back in the day, you know, black people in churches would come together.
Yeah, these were community people doing it.
They would put their money in and try to back one person. But there's much more money now, and we're in the age of social media, so people can kind of brand themselves. They can get their message out with the click of a finger, and so the dynamics have changed somewhat. But yes, in politics, you're always going to have those in power positions that will be looking to see, you know, who could represent us, because everyone is not going to be the politician. You know, the politician is the face, but the community is really the employer. The politician is the employee. And so you always have interest within the community that says, okay, I'm not going to run for whatever reason, but I believe Joe Blow here will be a great representative for us, and then they get behind you.
That's me.
It starts in those small meetings where you start planning, like, okay, 5 brothers in a room, and something is coming up. We say, okay, you're polished, man. I think you could do it. Okay, I can get these people.
I can go get the money. You go get the people. You know, I may have talent and technology. We can work with the messaging and put it out there in a visual way. But yeah, you may have one guy who's kind of charismatic. He's a good people person, speaks well, and say, okay, you're the one we can put out there. Yeah. Someone over here may not have those same attributes, but they may be the brains behind the operation. They may be the data guy, right? And so, yeah, those things happen.
How far away do you think we are from potentially having for lack of a better example, a soldier boy type of politician who with nothing, just exploiting some technology, surprises somebody? I mean, like
that happens. That happens now.
I'm talking about with nothing, like someone with
that happens now across the country through social media. You know, people will put out blogs or they'll put out messaging, and it could be something that's very controversial. And in this polarized political world that we're in, you know, either the far left or the far right can get behind it, you know, and say, okay, that's the guy. He's catchy. You know, we don't know who he is, but he's starting to get a following because he's so controversial. He's outspoken, and before you know it, they're in Congress. That happens.
Yeah, because to me, I never see. Now, granted, I don't follow.
It doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't happen a lot with black candidates, but on the right, yeah, many times people will just catch fire, and they be a nobody today. And overnight, based on something that they may have put out on social media. Yeah. Like, for instance, remember when there was a salon owner in Dallas who was refusing to either shut down or wear a mask or something, and she wanted to still cut people's hair? I think she is about to run for Congress, you know, and so it just based off media hype and attention, some people run with that.
Man, do you have to, like, I mean, just as an American politician, when you get that light on you and you know, at an Obama moment, you know, you open a speech, you weren't planning on running, but now you have, is it like, do you have to go? Like, it's almost like I got to take advantage of this.
I think maybe not to run for office per se, but to definitely run for a certain opportunity. When Obama gave that speech in 2004, he was a Illinois state senator, right? So he was already a politician. It's just a lot of people didn't know him. But after that speech, gave him the opportunity to possibly run for a U.S. Senate seat. He may, for a U.S. Senate seat. And so I think politicians, when they have an opportunity to move up to a higher seat based on, a great speech or a great program that they ran, they're always going to look at that as a consideration.
You think the person who booked him to give him that opportunity, was that Jay-Z giving his new artist a feature that he knows about the killer, or do you think it was just everything just lined up?
No, I do think there was some strategy behind it. You don't get to that level. Yeah. You don't get to that level just happenstance. And so I think they saw a lot of talent in him. I think he had his own ambition. If you read his books about his timeline, he kind of speaks to wanting to take advantage of those moments. His team reaching out to people to say, hey, can I have these type of opportunities? And he struck, and
he was being primed.
And he knew that he had something. It's just the masses needed to know.
I got a few more questions. One, I want you to talk about the program that you have, the Suits for Success. And we were having a discussion earlier. You can add what we were talking about with dress and how important that perception is. But I want you to talk about the history of that Suits for Success program that you have.
So I didn't know anything about running a nonprofit, setting up a nonprofit, but me and one of my friends one day noticed that there weren't a lot of programs for high school age boys, especially as it pertains to mentorship and wardrobe. Around prom time, you always would hear about programs to give underprivileged girls like a prom dress. And we were like, why don't they ever give a guy a nice suit or a tuxedo for his prom? And we kind of ran with that idea and did our research to see, were there a lot of programs or any programs within the city that focused on high school age boys? And we didn't find that. We found them that focused on high school girls or younger kids or people who was coming back from prison or the military to come back into society, but nothing for the high school boy. And so we came up with this idea called Suits for Success, and it's a semester-long mentorship course where we have a life skills class with high school graduating senior males. And we put them through this life skills course where they learn etiquette training, resume building, interview techniques, personal finance, how to tie a tie. And at the end of the semester, we provide them with a free suit, shirt, and tie for high school graduation and life beyond. And what we try to do within that semester is really try to build their confidence. And a suit usually can build your confidence, right? If you put on a nice suit, and we take them to the tailor, they get to pick out their suit, take them to the tailor. Many times they've never been to a tailor or had on a suit.
That's official tissue. Yeah. I thought y'all was handing them out.
We take them to the tailor. We give them the whole. We give them the whole experience. We've added a component where we do the etiquette training now at an upscale restaurant. We took the boys to Vic and Anthony's this year where they got to wear their suits in that type of setting. And you want to expose them to what it feels like to be a success. The businessmen that you see on TV, you can be that. When we were coming up, all we saw on TV was guys who were athletes or entertainers or drug dealers. Those were the ones that were successful. Many of us didn't go into any of those professions, but we're still finding some success. Yeah. And what we try to do at Suits for Success is embed that into them, saying, with education, which is how most of us attain success, with education, you can go far. And if you think about the way you present yourself, people are going to open up doors for you and give you opportunities. And when they put that suit on and they look in the mirror, you can see that their confidence rises. And you give them a firm handshake, you look them in the eyes, you see that their shoulders go back, and they transform. And that's what we really try to provide for these young boys. We have so many kids in the inner city with a lot of potential, and they have a lot of talent. They just need to be exposed.
Yeah, they need to see that meal.
They need the exposure and the opportunity, and that's what Suits for Success provides.
That's brilliant, because when I listen to your story, like most of our stories, when we come from the communities and are able to break out, most of the time we had unique, whether it's a grandfather who was a mentor to Martin Luther King. I had a grandfather who had a med school degree in the 40s. You had a lot of times it's not that we were necessarily the smartest in the neighborhood. You happen to be on the Southwest, but also with a mother at TSU for 40 years. So I always look to, like, how can that advantage be passed on to someone else, without it necessarily being your direct child?
I think it's incumbent upon us within our own capabilities to make sure that we do what we can to help the next person. You don't have to have a nonprofit. You can just see a kid at your church or kids at your church, be a Sunday school teacher, or just mentor them. Hey, let me take you to lunch. Hey, let me take you to a ball game. And just that interaction and them being around you, you're going to be able to pour into them. And I try to tell people all the time, if we all do our small part, it'll make a huge impact. And so when you see people at your church, or there's a kid at your kid's school who has a challenging background, doesn't have maybe the same foundation that your son or daughter has, try to take that kid under your wing, because that kid could be the next Kamala Harris.
No, most definitely. And I'm a firm, one of the things, like, I always tell people sometimes that, we had one of our kids get into Stanford. So you got one kid get into Stanford. What about the other 300? I don't like that one-itis narrative anymore. Not when it's a classroom or it's a neighborhood full of kids. Not saying that, you can save every single person, but I think it has to be bigger. Like, as a community, to me, if the only thing I care about is my kid, then what am I really doing? Anyone can care about their own kid, but hey, my grandfather had Robert J. Mayberry scholarship, and I ain't never get it. And my name's Robert J. Mayberry. So, I think, like, to me, what you displaying and what you're talking about, it's next level manhood. It's like, hey, you have a family.
Because we all made it based on the contributions of others. We all had mentors in our life, or a coach or a teacher, a deacon at the church, somebody that gave us that extra push, someone that didn't even know that they were being a role model, but you saw the way that they treated their wife, or you saw the way that they dressed or spoke. You understood that they had a college degree. You understood that they were hardworking. You understood that they would do extra things around the church to provide for the youth. And those things at the time may not have resonated, but when you look back, you say, man, those influences shaped who I am and who I have become. And now it's our job, now that we recognize that, to make sure that we watch our actions, the way we talk, the way that we walk, the things that we do, because a lot of those kids are looking up to us the same way we were looking up to others.
Oh, before I ask one last question, just a point of, a point of information for people that watch this and they hear us talk about city council and District J and districting. One thing that happened, we had a rapper, legendary rapper, Scarface, aka Brad Jordan, ran, I want to say, District D, and Willie D, who was also a part of the legendary group, the Ghetto Boys, coming out of Houston, ran for District B. So when we start talking about local politics, and even though they didn't win, so that lends into popularity necessarily doesn't win you politics.
But Scarface got a little further, didn't he?
He got a little further, but he still didn't win that district. But I was just saying that to say the importance of focusing on, like, the local politics. Outside of Houston, people look at Scarface as like a Jay-Z type figure.
Yeah, he's a.
So to run for a local position in politics should let people know this is one of the influences.
You got to put in the work. Scarface, he has done a lot in the community, but people still view him as an entertainer. And I think even though he had a good showing for his first candidacy, the woman who did win, Councilmember Carolyn Evans Shabazz, she had a track record of service within that community for a long time, and was actually an elected official at the time, serving as a trustee for the Houston Community College. And what I tell people all the time is if you want to get into politics, it takes time to be able to prove yourself to your community. And you have to get out there and attend, those civic clubs or those homeowners association meetings. You have to show up to those churches. You have to knock on those doors. You have to put in the work, because people have to know what you're about. They have to know who you are, and they have to know that you're not just someone who just showed up asking for my support.
Yes, it's a lesson, because people assume, oh, this person is popular.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the people that have been following politics, if you don't have that pedigree, sometimes they're looking and saying, okay, I haven't seen you at certain meetings until now.
Is that first campaign with most politicians, is it to actually win it, or is it more just to...
Of course you want to win it, but you rarely do. Look at our current mayor. He lost his first two bids for mayor. One of the most iconic black elected officials in our city, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, she lost her first 3 bids for office. So people usually do not win at first just because people really don't know you yet. I ran for office the first time, I think I was in my late 20s. People really didn't know who I was. You don't have a lot of money, and you kind of got to get out there and prove yourself. And I think for the people who know that it's for them after that loss, they stay out there. Now people actually do know who you are. They've seen your signs, they've seen your mail, they've seen people with your t-shirts. You lost, and guess what? You're still here. You're still showing up to the civic clubs. You're still coming to the churches. You're still out at the community events. And if you're true to it, people will recognize that, and eventually your time will come.
One thing I want you to let us know, what can we do to help?
Yeah. So when you say help, that's a pretty broad word. But
support, back.
So to support me, I always tell people that I try to stay active on social media a lot, and I put a lot of programs, initiatives, volunteer opportunities there. And it's a way in which you can connect with the things that we have going on in the District J office, a way in which to connect with my vision and the things that I want to see get done in the city of Houston, and we're able to develop relationships to help others. And so for anybody who wants to be a part of what we have going on and to support our initiatives and programs, Edward Pollard is the name, Pollard. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and when you see things that interest you, shoot me a DM and we'll get you connected.
Hey, man, we'll appreciate that, man.
Yeah, and most definitely, and I want to give a shout out to our boy Ronnie, because I just DM'd Ronnie on Instagram and said, hey.
Social media is a powerful tool, man. People are a DM away, and so I try to connect people and help people that I don't know just based on the message that they sent. If it's something that I can do, I try to do, and if I can't do it, I'll try to refer it to someone else. And I hope you all, if there's anything you see me doing or would like me to do, just reach out at any time. We'll see what we can do to assist.
Hey, coming out of Southwest Houston.
Yeah.
Hey, man, coming out of TSU.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, we want to support you, man, any way
I
we
appreciate
can,
that.
man, throughout the journey, man. So we
you.
Appreciate you taking the time and coming out and having this gentleman's dialogue.
Yeah, I appreciate
man.
you all having me, man. Yeah.
Bro. Yeah. Hey, this is Gentleman's History Hour. Y'all hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Want to salute City Councilman Mr. Edward Pollard, City Councilman, District J. Y'all go to the website and check him out if you live in District J or even outside, just whatever you could do. Donate, volunteer time. Want to say thanks to everyone that's watching this. Thank you as well. Gentleman's History Hour. Salute. If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.